That's as high as I'm willing to go in Hawaii. Okay, right now I'm out of shape.
Yeah,
I'm middle aged. You know.
there's like solid 4 foot with the odd 5 foot set coming through.
All right.
Yeah,
I like
so
that.
right up there, like it was hitting the peak.
Definitely.
Yeah,
Definitely.
yeah.
Now, Inherent Bummer, your initial reaction to this movie.
Again, a throwback, but completely opposite in a lot of ways to Pentecostal. Like it was just sort of smashed together this pastiche of, you know, even not only the different surfers in the clips, but you could tell some of it had been like filmed, and then some of it looked like it had been shot on somebody's iPhone, and it's all just
Yeah.
fucking squashed in together, and nobody cares. And in many ways, it was very modern in that regard because it felt like you're almost just scrolling through an Instagram feed.
Well,
But
that's so funny that you say it because that my initial reaction was like, why hasn't anyone made a surf film of just all the different Instagram clips and
yeah,
just call it
yeah,
the gram? And I was like, this movie is really feels like I'm just scrolling through Instagram watching a
yeah,
surf, watch just
yeah.
all of my favorite surfers.
But nobody's done that, and it reminded me of the old. I mean, Taylor Steele videos were very much like that, where you might have one song where it's one song for one surfer, and then the next one would be that mishmash of
Yeah.
10 guys in the one song. But even that was Taylor Steele. That was still pretty high level. Justin Gain did the same with his Pulse movies in Australia.
Mm-hmm.
But it reminded me of these VHS like crappy old videos that local guys used to shoot around my area.
Yeah.
And it would be like these mixtapes almost of like who's who at the time. And
awesome.
Just that sort of underground feel to it, where it was really, I got to say the music in it was incredible, but the production was just very, very squashed together. But I really like that. And it just, gave me that sort of old school underground feeling of when you would get these videos and it'd be like a taped copy that you would get. So it would just be in some blank VHS and you'd put it in and you'd see some guys you knew. And it was this really cool way to sort of connect the culture at a local level. And I feel like he's done that really, really well.
Yeah.
And funny thing, I was thinking about these old videos that we used to get shared around the area, and I actually ended up in one once.
No way.
But so I would have
been abuse.
Well, I was close, pretty psychologically. So I was about 10 or 11, maybe a little bit older, and it was a clip at this quite heavy reef break around here. That's sort of a bit of a novelty break. Only breaks on big swells. And I remember the video came out, and someone's like, "Oh, Nick, you got to check it out. You're in this video." And I got a hold of it, and when I saw it, they'd got a clip of me. It was like one wave taking off. I think I'd done a bottom turn and then came up and did a top turn. And being a young kid, obviously never had realised I had quite an awkward style. And they'd given me the name underneath it, Wiggles.
Oh no! Oh no! Mr. Wigglesworth.
I was so pumped I was in this movie, and it turns out they were just like making fun of some little.
Oh, you were the Wiggle guy.
I was the Wiggle
Hello,
guy.
Mr. Wigglesworth.
Yeah.
Dr.
It was probably right around that time, actually. Maybe that's where it came from. So it just sort of brought up this underlying psychological trauma about my style, which I probably still do the same thing now. But that was pretty funny. But all in all, look, that's the sort of thing that this movie made me think about, and that in itself is a good thing because it just was a throwback to those old school days of just these great, sort of shitty but good in their own way.
It felt like, so I was trying to think of like the different influences and crosses of it. It had a little bit of Taylor Steele for sure, like that Taylor Steele vibe. But then I would say you would go down to a poor man's Taylor Steele at Jesse Schluntz with Daredevils movie series. It had a very Daredevils vibe, which, is a very San Diego centric kind of aesthetic, which I think there's part of that in this to analyze that. And then I would throw in like a bit of Lost potentially and like a smattering, a dash of Volcom circa 97, maybe, like Magnaplasm-ish.
Yeah.
Like that would be like the ingredients of movies. I would say it reminded me of. The music is sick. I loved I really loved like actually the segment where you had some female surfers mixed with men, and like it was just like, yes, it was really good.
This is us right now.
Yeah, it was great. Those movies, particularly the ones that had everyone in them, like Lost and a few of those others, they always like showed everyone. They always felt like they were a documentation, or it was creating a cohesive vibe to surf culture. By including all the different people, it always felt like this is the state of surfing right now. Whereas the Taylor Steele movies were like, this is like the state of high performance surfing, but it wasn't always the full representation. It was much more exclusive. Like this is the VIP of surfing. But the Lost movies, Daredevils, Pulse, Dupe, Generation, those movies all were like, that was when surf culture had almost a collective mind in some ways too. There was like, the culture, we all dug the same things. We all, a lot of it was dictated to us by the magazines and videos, but I would say like it gave you a sense that this was a cohesive community, which I think we've lost in some ways by not having movies like this.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So that was my little diatribe. But
all right on point. I completely agree. And yeah, like I said, completely sort of different reasons for why I like Pentecostal so much, but still just equally as valid and exciting and so good to see.
The only thing I'll give, I'm going to give a strike against Inherent Bummer about, is no secret segment after the credits. The fuck, man.
Yeah.
Like if you're going to go core surf film,
you can't do that anymore. And it's the same with music as well as film, because nowadays you're watching it on, Vimeo or wherever.
Yeah.
And you can see the track length. Same as when you're listening to something on your iPod. So if it's a secret, it's going to be there. Whereas it's always, on the old VHS when you didn't realize it was still playing, or sorry, on the old tapes when you didn't realize it was still playing, and or through your CD player, and then it would pop up. That was the good thing. But yeah, you're right. That was still, especially looking at the Lost movies, some of the best content was in the secret tracks.
It was always that. And then like, there's the best secret track though of all time is in Josh Palmer's The Kill.
Okay.
So I don't know if you've ever seen a Josh Palmer movie.
I've seen a couple, nothing in its sort of original context, no.
So his movies, they were poor man, Taylor Steele, they, lifted a little bit of the Taylor Steele format, except, he didn't have the budget to travel as much. So he would only tour around the PSAA contest and film the surfing around there. And then the other surfers. Yeah. But they were always really enjoyable and fun. And the music was good. And he was creative actually, working within like a small budget, but I love the movies. But there's this one on The Kill, the first one, and you see all this progressive surfing in Santa Cruz, guys doing airs and all this shit. You go through the credits and it's a long pause after the credit. Like,
yeah, right. So you gotta,
and you're just still like, not even paying attention sometimes. Yeah. And all of a sudden, vintage current footage I'd never seen before, surfing Rincon and Sandspit, bright wetsuit with Violent Femmes. It was a bad party. I think it's Violent Femmes. It might be someone else, but it was a bad party. And it's like, it's the greatest because the movie is okay. And so you get through it, but then you are totally rewarded.
That's so good.
Curran, which in 92, 90 or 94 was almost impossible to get footage of other than the search. That was it. So you that's like sucking on bone marrow right there for you.
Yeah, that would be incredible. And you're right. It is something that there's just no real way of doing anymore, unless you're maybe it's something that Travis can take on board for surf film too.
Yeah, right. So let's get to our top favorites here. All right. So, all right, Nick, what are your personal? We did the personal favorite, our pump up favorites, and surf bio favorites.
Yeah.
All right, your personal favorite top 5.
So,
and no order. You don't have to order it, by the way.
Well, I'll put this one in at 5. And it's a pretty pedestrian choice, but also something I think will be in a lot of people's lists. And it's Kelly Slater in Black and White.
Of course.
And this is going back to my original point about it not being influenced by what was, the top ranking movie at the time or what had the greatest impact on the surf culture, but it was just the first video I ever got as a kid. So the first video I ever owned that I watched, 1,000 times backwards, forwards, can memorize the whole thing. So that in itself puts it in there for me. But on top of that, I still think that objectively it is also one of the greatest films of all times in terms of.
Do you like it?
Of course. Why would I eat it? Announcing him onto the world stage, like that's the Slater era, which we're still living and laboring under today, 30 years.
His empire,
later.
Man.
Yeah. The surfing in it is still, to this day, incredible to watch. The Trestles comp is just ridiculous. Early sort of Tavarua, when people probably weren't that familiar with Cloudbreak. Even I loved the fact that some of the music was scored.
Mother Love Bone, aka pre-Pearl Jam.
Yeah, that was great. That was great in itself. But the fact that I think the Trestles comp in particular was actually scored. So they had some sort of cheesy rock orchestra that was obviously sitting there watching Slater play and jingling the cymbals when he would do like a lip line floater or something. It was just so
I
good.
love that.
Yeah.
Oh,
Mother Love Bone. That's such a good song.
It's great, particularly Chopu, and it's like, oh my god, I'm not Chopu, Tahiti. I'm not Tahiti. Yeah. Fiji. Damn it.
Yeah,
gosh, Tavarua. And the guy's like, the people come from the Quicksilver to evolutionize big wave surfing. It's so good. Or when Slater's like, right, so good. Lip just keeps going, hit me.
Hit me. Yeah. I remember when he's talking about his friends while he's surfing, I think it's in Tavarua, and he's going through all of his friends at the time. There's one guy called Wooly. So
Richard Woolpack.
in the early 90s, my sister was dating a guy called Wooly who was a surfer. And I remember him at the time telling me that he was Wooly. He's like, yeah, me and Slater are best friends. And I was like, wow, that's incredible.
Your ex-boyfriend started Volcom.
Yeah. I was like, what was this, 93? I would have been 8, 9. So I was like, oh, wow, you're in KS Black and White.
I saw that in a high school gymnasium. They had it screened.
Yeah.
And I remember just being like, and this was like right when I was getting into surfing. It was just like, what the fuck is this? Holy shit, this guy's amazing. Like,
yeah.
It really did announce like, this is the real deal. This is Curran's heir apparent, and there's no stopping him. All right, next up,
Enjoy the Ride, ETR.
ETR, baby. So good.
Yeah, and obviously you've been able to see this recently with your little treasure trove of VHS rips that you've got. And it was so good for me to be able to watch it again too. So where to go with this one? So it was directed by Matty Jai, who did How's Your Pie, which was an sort of underground cult.
My fucking slogan. I lifted off of him.
Yeah. How's your pie, mate?
How's your pie?
That Quicksilver time, so it was the Australian Quicksilver team in the sort of late 90s. You had Danny Wills, Mick Campbell, obviously the two surfers at that stage duking it out with Slater. There was the Patterson brothers, Will Lewis, who's such an underrated, underappreciated, smooth, silky surfer. He was the first pro surfer I ever saw in the flesh. I remember as a young grommet, he came out of Newcastle one day, and just seeing how quick he surfed and the gap between everybody else in the lineup and him, and I was like, right, so this is what it looks like. I still remember it to this day. It was incredible. You also had a young Mick Fanning coming through as well,
and Sean Fanning
in it. Yeah, the juniors song in that. There's the Grommet song in that. There's some really good talent. So the surfing in it was incredible. But for me, like, it was I think in terms of Australian surf films, some of the best surf acting that's ever been done.